Financial services regulation looming. A report from Axios says Congresswoman Maxine Waters is looking to bring oversight of international financial institutions under the umbrella of the House Financial Services Committee. She is set to take over as chair of that committee under the new Congress when Democrats take control of the House. Joining me now is Media D.C. political analyst Ron Meyer. Ron, always good to see you. What do you make of this report and what Maxine Waters running that committee will do to regulation, what the motive would be there?
Well, elections have consequences, and here you go. This is something Maxine Waters has actually been talking about for quite some time. She's totally going to rearrange the subcommittee structure for this committee. And what she's going to do is put the regulation and oversight of basically foreign banks under the same subcommittee as illicit and illegal activity. And so she's already sort of saying, hey, a lot of these foreign banks, especially she's really targeting Deutsche Bank because of its relationship 20-plus years ago with President Trump. And so she wants to bring in all of this into this subcommittee and really try to stir things up. No one really should be surprised. Everyone knew Maxine Waters would be financial services chair. I don't think anybody in business thought it'd be particularly good for the marketplace, but here we are. And so she's laying out this plan. She's trying to get her other committee Democrats on board, and it looks like this is going to advance. Is it good for the markets? No. Of course, the only issue is that she's obviously not going to be able to get anything passed that will pass the Senate and get the president's signature. But what she can do is a lot of investigations and a lot of subpoenas. And so while you wouldn't really think the Financial Services Committee would be a home for investigations, I think that's what we're going to see under Chairman Waters.
James, literally every Democrat sitting on a committee is going to figure out some way to investigate President Trump.
That's right. And I think for her, the play is going to be looking at his banking relationships, looking at banks that Russia and China use, and trying to tie that somehow to nefarious action on the president's part. But, Ron, I do wonder, you mentioned none of this legislation that's going to come out of her committee is going to become law. You mentioned the investigative piece. She also has the ability to try to embarrass administration officials at hearings. Do you think she can move the needle and change regulation based on that pressure, on bringing a spotlight to issues she doesn't, or differences she has with administration regulations?
Well, you know, I doubt that she's going to be able to get the president and the Republican Senate to agree to things by doing anything overly dramatic. I do think that there's actually some room on financial services to work across the aisle. And surprisingly, she has some of a history doing that. And so if that's what her focus is, I think there could be some productivity there. But it looks like, I mean, listen, her whole campaign season with talking about going and harassing members of Congress who are Republicans, whether they're at a restaurant or a public place. I mean, I don't really think she's going to be the one who's going to be reaching across the aisle trying to be productive. I think what she's going to be trying to do is try to stay in the headlines and try to stay relevant. And frankly, I think it's something that President Trump is welcoming. I think he wants Speaker Pelosi and he wants Chairman Waters. I think he wants these people to be his opponents and to help rev up his base for 2020. Do I think it's good for our political system? Do I think it's good for our markets? Absolutely not. But it's good for President Trump's reelection campaign, so I don't think he's particularly sad about it because it's going to gin up the base because they're going to have perfect antagonists to go after.
Well, he got into, the president did, Lee, a little interesting back and forth with Adam Schiff over the weekend, which we will not go into.
Anyway. Want to spell it?
No, we can't.
He loves to stoke that fire. But one of my questions right now, when you look at what do you think that we're sacrificing by having the focus shift to be more on international rather than the things that we have been? And on top of that, I'm really curious, you said that you think that they can compromise or work together. What kinds of things do you think that they could come together on, and what would that do for us?
Well, Maxine Waters actually worked with Republicans this last year on a bipartisan bill that actually lessened regulations on some community banks. And I think there's more work to be done there. And there are things that Republicans and Democrats can agree on when it comes to fixing regulations in financial services and putting in good consumer protections. But I think, like I said, I'm not sure that's really going to be her focus with the comments that we've seen come out and the structure that she's putting in place with these subcommittees. And so I do think that a large part of her media attention focus will be on these international banks, tying them to Russia and China and President Trump. And what we're going to have, unfortunately, I think, is another 2 years of really chaotic politics. And I'm not sure that's why Democrats won the House, to be honest with you. I think Democrats won the House to be a check on the crazy politics, right? And instead they're answering crazy politics with crazy politics, right? And so I don't think that's going to win them the White House in 2020, and I don't think that it's going to increase their majorities in either house.
And it could be bad for business as well, Ron, because think of Wells Fargo and John Stumpf. I mean, I imagine that a lot more bank CEOs in the future will be hauled in front of Congress and probably embarrassed and asked multiple questions about some of their questionable business practices. So what does that say what is the message being signaled to bank executives?
I mean, she called for Wells Fargo to be broken up.
Right.
And so what does that tell you? I mean, I think a lot of us here have Wells Fargo accounts. Doesn't that make you feel a little uncomfortable? It makes me feel a little uncomfortable. My mortgage is through Wells Fargo. I'm a little uncomfortable. So I think that many of us who have retirement accounts, that do have savings accounts for our kids, college accounts, aren't particularly excited about Chairman Waters regulating financial services. Even though she doesn't have any legislative authority on her own, the fact that she can change markets just by calling people in front of Congress and haranguing them, the fact that she can start these investigations and subpoena people on her own is rather troubling.
They also are always looking 2 years ahead, Ron, and does that really help them get reelected? Maybe, maybe not. If you're from a deep blue district, perhaps. If you're Maxine Waters, perhaps, but in those purple districts, you got to call that into question.
Yeah, I think you're looking for mature leadership. I think you're looking for calm leadership, and I think that's why Democrats won the House. And I'm not sure that's what they're going to get with Chairman Waters and Speaker Pelosi. And I think that long term, it'll be good for Republicans to have these two in leadership posts.
I can point you to dozens of preschools across this country that show more maturity than the people who work in Washington. Ron, thank you so much. Great to see you.